Hey, how we doing today? Things are going great in gearing. I just had to chase two of our chickens because they got out of their coop, so that was a blast. With the exception of that, life is going pretty well. Good morning, Dwight and Liz. Good to see you guys on here this morning. Hope you're both doing well. Good morning, Nancy. Good morning, Ruth. Good morning to others of you that are watching. It is Thursday, May 20th. I want to remind you that tomorrow we're going to be unloading over at the Petersons' home. When they get here and get kind of settled in, we'll let you know that by text. In our texting tree. If you're not able to help with that, but you'd like to help some other ways, we want to encourage you to just bring a gift card by the Westway building. It can be a grocery store or a restaurant, Home Depot, Menards, those kinds of things. Anything like that, just to help them, kind of get their start here in town, help them to feel welcome. Good morning, Roseanne. Good to see you. If you have your Bible, I'd love for you to open that. We are in Genesis chapter 32. Jacob and his wives are on their way back to the Promised Land to settle there, and we are just going to start reading. So I'd love for you to follow along. We're in Genesis 32. I'm going to reach over here and close my door. It's a little chilly. Tiny breeze blowing right in on me. Read Genesis 32. As Jacob started on his way again, angels of God came to meet him. When Jacob saw them, he exclaimed, "This is God's camp." So he named the place Mahanaim. Then Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau, who was living in the region of Seir in the land of Edom. He told them, "Give this message to my master Esau. Humble greetings from your servant Jacob. Until now I have been living with Uncle Laban, and now I own cattle, donkeys, flocks of sheep and goats, and many servants, both men and women. I've sent these messengers to inform my lord of my coming, hoping that you will be friendly to me." After delivering the message, the messengers returned to Jacob and reported, "We met your brother Esau, and he's already on his way to meet you with an army of 400 men." Jacob was terrified with the news. He divided his household along with the flocks and herds and camels into two groups. He thought, if Esau meets one group and attacks it, perhaps the other group can escape. So remember, Jacob has bought the birthright from Esau for a bowl of stew. Jacob has stolen Esau's rights as firstborn. And now he's coming home. Their mother Rebecca had sent him away because she was afraid that Esau was going to kill him. So he went, he found two wives, blah, 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 blah. And now he's coming home. And this message in verse 4 and 5 is kind of like, hey, I can't wait to see you again message. And not really taking into account any of the bad behaviors that Jacob has done. So the messengers come back and they're like, Esau's coming, and he has an army of 400 men that he is going to meet you with. Jacob gets worried and he divides his household. So, like it says, hope if Esau meets one group and attacks it, perhaps the other group can escape. Then Jacob prayed. This is verse 9 of Genesis 32. Good morning to Lori and Carol and the other Lori. Good morning to Simon. Then Jacob prayed, O God of my grandfather Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, you told me, return to your own land and to your relatives. And you promised me I will treat you kindly. I'm not worthy of all the unfailing love and faithfulness you've shown to me, your servant. When I left home and crossed the Jordan River, I owned nothing except a walking stick. Now my household fills 2 large camps. O Lord, please rescue me from the hand of my brother Esau. I'm afraid that he is coming to attack me along with my wives and children. But you promised me, I will surely treat you kindly, and I will multiply your descendants until they become as numerous as the sands along the seashore, too many to count. Jacob stayed where he was for the night. Then he selected these gifts from his possessions to present to his brother Esau: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He divided these animals into herds and assigned each to different servants. Then he told his servants, go ahead of me with the animals, but keep some distance between the herds. He gave these instructions to the men leading the first group. When my brother Esau meets you, he will ask, whose servants are you? Where are you going? Who owns these animals? You must reply, they belong to your servant Jacob, but they are a gift for his master Esau. Look, he's coming right behind us. Jacob gave the same instructions to the second and third herdsmen and to all who followed behind the herds. You must say the same thing to Esau when you meet him. And be sure to say, look, your servant Jacob is right behind us. Jacob thought, I will try to appease him by sending gifts ahead of me. When I see him in person, perhaps he will be friendly to me. So the gifts were sent on ahead, while Jacob himself spent the night in the camp. So it's pretty clear. Jacob here is trying to bribe Esau with all of these gifts and all of these animals, because he knows he's done wrong, and he's trying to bribe him. During the night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 servant wives, and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. Then this left Jacob all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket. Then the man said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. What is your name? The man asked. He replied, Jacob. Your name will no longer be Jacob, the man told him. From now on, you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won. Please tell me your name, Jacob said. Why do you want to know my name? The man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there. Jacob named the place Peniel, which means face of God, for he said, I've seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. The sun was rising as Jacob left Peniel, and he was limping because of the injury to his hip. Even today, the people of Israel don't eat the tendon near the hip socket because of what happened that night when the man strained the tendon of Jacob's hip. We're just going to keep going. We're going to roll through this story. Then Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and his 2 servant wives. He put the servant wives and their children at the front. Isn't that nice? Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob went on ahead. As he approached his brother, he bowed to the ground 7 times before him. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him, and they both wept. Then Esau looked at the women and children and asked, "Who are these people with you?" "These are the children God has graciously given to me, your servant," Jacob replied. Then the servant wives came forward with their children and bowed before him. Next came Leah with her children, and they bowed before him. Finally, Joseph and Rachel came forward, and they bowed before him. And what were all the flocks and herds I met as I came?" Esau asked. "They're a gift, my lord," Jacob replied, "to ensure your friendship." "My brother, I have plenty," Esau answered, "but keep what you have for yourself." But Jacob insisted, "No, if I have found favor with you, please accept this gift from me. And what a relief to see your friendly smile. It's like seeing the face of God," which he had just seen. "Please take this gift I brought you, for God has been very gracious to me. I have more than enough." And because Jacob insisted, Esau finally accepted the gift. "Well," Esau said, "let's be going. I will lead the way." But Jacob replied, "You can see, my lord, that some of the children are very young, and their flocks and herds have their young too. If they are driven too hard, even for one day, all my animals could die. Please, my lord, go ahead of your servant. We will follow you slowly at a pace that is comfortable for the livestock and for the children. I will meet you at Seir." "All right," Esau said, "but at least let me assign some of my men to guide and protect you." Jacob responded, "That's not necessary. It's enough that you've received me warmly, my lord." So Esau turned and started back to Seir on the same day. Jacob, on the other hand, traveled to Succoth. There he built himself a house and made shelters for his livestock. That's why the place was named Succoth, which means shelters. Later, having traveled all the way from Padan Aram, Jacob arrived safely at the town of Shechem in the land of Canaan. There he set up camp outside the town. Jacob bought a plot of land where he camped from the family of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver. And there he bought an altar and named it El Elohi Israel. So, Jacob. Yep, Esau, we're going to follow you, and then he goes somewhere else. I just think that we continue to see the same thing that we've been talking about. And I know that's nothing new. Maybe that's something we're bored with talking about. But these are just people that just have broken and messed up relationships. And they don't, especially Jacob, just cannot keep to any of his commitments. Jacob doesn't seem like he can keep his word with anyone. The story where he's wrestling with God, wrestling with the angel, like Jacob's entire life is marked by fighting. Jacob's entire life is marked by fighting. It's marked by fighting with other people. It's marked by fighting with God. It's marked by fighting with his brother. It's marked by fighting with his wives. And we're going to read next Tuesday. It's marked by fighting with the people of Shechem. No matter who Jacob comes across, he is always fighting with people. It just seems like he's always trying to get he's always trying to get the blessing of someone else. Have you noticed that? Jacob buys the birthright from Esau for a bowl of stew. He wants to be recognized. Jacob steals the blessing from his father that belongs to Esau because he wants to be recognized. Here in Genesis chapter 32, Jacob is wrestling with this angel, wrestling with God. However you want to look at that. And I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me. It seems like Jacob is just constantly looking for the affirmation and approval of other people. And no matter how many times he receives that affirmation and that approval, it's never enough. So he gives his brother Esau all of these animals, and he gets the approval, he gets the affirmation, he gets the forgiveness, and then he goes and he lives somewhere else. Like, he is just perpetually a person who wants the affirmation and approval of other people. And it's like he's constructed his entire life around gaining the approval of others. And something that we can see here is no matter how many times he gets that approval, no matter who he receives the approval from, even receiving it from God in this wrestling match, like, it's never enough. And I'm sure you know people like that. I know people like that. I can be like that. As much as I would love to say that I'm not a people pleaser, I think at the root, and maybe it's not even the root, maybe it's not that far down, I have people pleasing tendencies, and for Jacob, like, he has these moments where he kind of realizes who he is in God, in this prayer in chapter 32. Like, he recognizes who he is in God. He wants to be obedient to God. He tries to worship God. He sets up these stones and tries to do all of these things. But in the end, Jacob is a person who is constantly looking for affirmation. And then when he receives it, it's never enough, because he's just not satisfied. And God is the only one who can give Jacob the affirmation that he needs. God is the only one who can give us the affirmation that we need. And then what we need to do is we need to rest in that. We need to stop fighting for it. We need to stop wrestling with it. And we just need to find satisfaction in God's plan for us, and not fight against it. And as I think about just these last number of chapters, as we've been reading through the story of Jacob and his deceit and all of these kinds of things, we find a person who is just not satisfied in what God has for him. He refuses to accept the blessings that God has for him. And soon, in a few chapters, I know Genesis has 50 chapters, but like, the pace of this story is going to dramatically, it's going to both speed up and it's going to slow down. We're going to cover a lot of ground over the next over the next 16 or 17 chapters. But this desire for affirmation, this desire for approval, is going to affect all of Jacob's children, and it's going to continue. Like, it's just going to set it's going to set God's people on a collision course of disobedience with God. And that's why we've been talking about over the past week and a half or so. Many of the things that we're reading in the book of Genesis are either setup or payoff. And payoff isn't always a good thing. Payoff is simply where we see the result of the setup. And what we're just seeing right now is someone who, through every choice he makes, is setting up his family, who are going to be the people of Israel, who are God's people. Now we know why his name is Israel. He's just setting up God's people for a collision course with God, where we're going to see throughout the rest of the Bible. Once we turn that page to Exodus chapter 1, we're going to see God's people having moments of obedience and hours and days and weeks and months and years of disobedience. And all of that groundwork, all of that setup is being laid right here in the book of Genesis. Tomorrow's Friday. We're going to be praying together. And I want to encourage you to join us at 7 a.m. Let us know how we can be praying with you and praying for you during that time. Again, if you can help with unloading tomorrow, we're going to send a text out when we know more about that. Try and give you a couple hours notice. And if you would like to help the Petersons out with gift cards, bring them by the church office so we can bless them this weekend. So I'm going to pray, and then we'll see you guys in the morning. God, I'm thankful for the opportunity we have to read the Bible together. Just pray that that we would take the opportunity, that we would take every opportunity we have and be obedient to you. That we would live for the hope that comes through your Son Jesus. That we would trust in your approval, that we would trust in your affirmation, and we would find satisfaction in who you are and in what you're doing. And it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. All right. I love you guys. Praying with you, praying for you. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow morning for the Friday Pray. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.